Hello and welcome to Africa Live, where we bring you African and global news from all perspectives. I'm Famida Miller. Now, also coming up in the next half hour. Supporting growth in Africa, how a Chinese firm has risen to become South Africa's leading electronics producer. And battle for Africa's slots, the latest from the ongoing World Cup qualifier matches. Tributes and good wishes continue to pour in for former South African President Nelson Mandela, who was rushed to hospital yet again during the early hours of Saturday morning, suffering from a recurring lung infection. The 94-year-old Nobel Peace Laureate has suffered from lung ailments for many years, dating back to when he was in prison before his historic release in 1990. The South African presidency has given assurances that he is receiving the best possible treatment and says doctors are doing everything possible to make him better.
Nelson Mandela has been hospitalized several times during the past few months, mostly for medical checkups or scheduled medical procedures. This was the first time the South African presidency said he had to be rushed to hospital because his health had deteriorated. His condition described as serious but stable.
By 1:30 this morning, they came to the conclusion that there was a deterioration such that he needed to be hospitalized. So that was done in the early hours of this morning. They themselves say that their concern was such that they see the condition as serious, but they also have reported that he's in a stable condition.
Mr. Maharaj, you've been very close with Nelson Mandela as a longtime friend and comrade. How does it affect you to see him so frail?
The first thing is that it's been a privilege to enjoy the friendship of a person like Madiba. You learn so much from him. But secondly, he's a fighter. He's come out of many bouts of problems and illnesses far more serious, and he's survived. As far as I'm concerned, that fighting spirit is there. It is still there. This is a man we all adore, we admire. He's a role model for us. We would want him to be with us forever. But let us take courage and celebrate this life and celebrate the way he is a fighter.
Media from around the world gathered at a number of sites which have become synonymous with Nelson Mandela's name, including here at the Union Buildings, where the international icon was inaugurated as South Africa's first democratic and black president in 1994. South Africans have become accustomed to Madiba, their larger-than-life political hero, being ill and frail in recent times, but say they'll always be thankful for the way he had reconciled and led their once racially divided nation.
Without that old man, Mr. Utata, we are nothing in this world. And I hope the family will pray and understand that the old man, the South Africa is nothing without that old man, ma'am. That I tell you inside of my heart.
I think it's sad and it's painful, but as an old man, I think he's old and he's sick. We must be healed in hospital. We must live in peace because we have laid a foundation for this country. Let's just live in peace and hope for the best for our country.
The South African presidency has asked people across the globe who adore Madiba to keep him in their prayers. Renat Alkam, CCTV, Pretoria.
Now, the former South African president has suffered lung ailments before. This is Nelson Mandela's fifth hospital admission in just 2 years. Despite the gloom that surrounds his hospital admissions, South Africans continue to pray and hope that Mandela will one day fully recover. Carol Oyola takes a look at Mandela's health problems.
Frail but still pushing on, former South African President Nelson Mandela has long battled with lung ailments. In January 2011, Mandela was taken to hospital for routine tests relating to respiratory problems. In February 2012, he was admitted to hospital for a stomach ailment. That same year, in December, Mandela underwent an operation to remove gallstones and treat the recurring lung infection. He was discharged after 18 days and placed under home-based care at his Houghton home. In January this year, the presidency said Mandela had made a full recovery from the surgery and continued to improve. Early in March, he was admitted to a Pretoria hospital for a scheduled checkup and was discharged the next day. And in April, he was released from hospital after a 10-day stay caused by pneumonia. In April, there was a row when South Africa's governing African National Congress, ANC, filmed a visit to see Mandela. They broadcast pictures of him with President Zuma and other party figures. Critics said it was an invasion of Mandela's privacy. Mandela's health problems are believed to have begun when he suffered damaged lungs while working in a prison quarry. He contracted tuberculosis in the 1980s while being held in jail on Robben Island. President Jacob Zuma has continuously assured South Africans that Mandela is not in any danger. However, he has also told the nation to be prepared for any eventuality. But despite Mandela's frailty, South Africans continue to pray for their former leader. They have hope that he will soon recover. Nelson Mandela retired from public life in 2004. However, his last major public appearance was in July 2010 at the final of the FIFA World Cup in Johannesburg. Since then, he has spent his time between Johannesburg and his ancestral village of Kunu in the Eastern Cape. Carol Oyola, CCTV.
Now, for the latest on Nelson Mandela's condition, let's cross to Renee Delcam, who's standing by in Johannesburg. Renee, earlier from your package, we saw that the presidential spokesperson, Mac Maraj, had indicated that Mr. Mandela's condition had stabilized. Can you give us a bit more detail on his current condition?
Well, as far as I understand, he's still in a serious condition, but as you say, he has stabilized. Mac Maraj has not gone much further than that. So the latest official comment we had was this afternoon saying that he was stable, and they're emphasizing that at the moment. He apparently spent the day in hospital getting the best medical care. At his bedside, of course, was his wife, Graça Michel. This afternoon at around 4:30, we saw an ambulance coming out of Heart Hospital, accompanied by official-looking vehicles. Any attempts to find out from the presidency whether or not this had anything to do with Nelson Mandela's hospitalization have so far been unsuccessful. So all we know is that he is still stable and that he has had his wife at his bedside, if not all, most of the day.
Now, Renee, as you said there, the situation is quite serious, and this is the first time that government has used that word to describe Mr. Mandela's condition. How has this been received in South Africa?
Well, it's not easy for South Africans to see this big, strong, iconic leader as a frail, ill, old man. But they have, over the past few months, grown to accept that Nelson Mandela is 94. We are just a month away from his 91st birthday on the 18th of July. We are also told by people on the street that they think Nelson Mandela has done his bit for the country. He has served this nation courageously and he's loved his people the way few other people, political leaders around the world have.
We must not worry that much about his health. It's normal to any person who's old. Time and time they get sick. But I think South African people, they just love him. They just want to see him alive.
Actually, it's quite bad. It's sad because he's our icon. We look towards him actually for everything. We look up to him. He fought for us. So it's a bad thing. We hope that he gets better soon. But yeah, we wish him a speedy recovery.
We must let the man rest. I think he did his part. It's good we keep tabs on what is happening. I think we must just keep it to the minimum. Yeah, I don't think we must just go too much, and because we raise alarms and unnecessarily, I think.
Do you have any other information looking at Mr. Mandela's condition?
Sorry, could you please repeat that?
Right, Renee, we just had a look at some of the comments made by members of the public in and around Pretoria following the admission to hospital of Mr. Mandela. I wonder, do you have any further detail regarding his condition, or is there still some confusion around where Mr. Mandela might be?
Yes, there is a little bit of confusion, of course, because they are unwilling to disclose exactly which hospital he is being treated at. This, of course, to guard the privacy of the family and to try and get doctors to be the main focus, not the media. But of course, the media, we have been trying to find out to the best of our ability. At this stage, the media has focused on the Heart Hospital in Pretoria, where one of Nelson Mandela's daughters was seen coming out of the hospital this morning. We saw the Deputy President, Kgalema Motlanthe, coming out of the hospital this afternoon, even though his people are saying that it was to do with an appointment for the Deputy President himself. So there is some confusion, but people understand that we want the doctors to be the main focus at this stage, and the family to be afforded the privacy. And of course the media, we will continue to do our job, but we will be doing that within the parameters of giving the family as much privacy as possible.
All right, thank you very much, Renee Delcom there in Johannesburg, just giving us an update on Nelson Mandela's condition. Now, it's time for a quick break, but when we come back, we'll have more, including fury in Cairo as Hosni Mubarak's retrial is postponed yet again. And redefining the relationship, Sino-US ties seek to break new ground as President Xi Jinping meets his US counterpart, Barack Obama, in California.
We follow the latest trends in global politics, economics, culture and sport, and how Africa fits into the global picture. You decide what's important.
We need a trade justice.
Africa's future will be determined by Africa.
For women's equal opportunity, for a better life. We have to change something, and it's not the outsiders.
Talk Africa, a new voice for the world.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak's trial has been delayed to June 10th after the court dismissed a civil rights case against the ousted leader. Families of the victims expressed their anger over the court's decision and are threatening unspecified measures to ensure justice is done. CCTV's Adel Mahrouki reports.
In just a matter of minutes, the first official session of what has been dubbed Egypt's trial of the century ended. Judge Mahmoud al-Rashid decided to reject the civil rights case and concentrate on the criminal file, which includes former President Hosni Mubarak, his interior minister, and 6 security aides.
During the first trial before the appeal, the court has requested to be relieved from this case. So with today's verdict, from now on this will be the only criminal court and the civil rights lawyers will never be heard.
فهي قضت بعدم بحكم النهارده يعني ده حكم على فكره.
المحكمة طبقت صحيح القانون.
The court has applied the law by rejecting the civil rights case. The civil rights lawyers could attend, but they will only monitor. As for the prosecution, they do not have a strong argument. According to the law, a defendant cannot be harmed following his appeal. So, even if the prosecution provides new evidence, nothing will change.
Following this latest development, all indications are that the criminal trial could conclude before the end of the year. Mubarak's retrial was occasioned by his successful appeal against his life sentence. His security aides joined the retrial for the prosecution's appeal on their innocence. So the former president and his interior minister will probably never get a worse sentence.
We really miss our leader, President Mubarak. He is an honorable character. Now that there is no proof against him, he must be released from prison and returned to his people. In the end, he will be victorious.
The court will pursue evidence from the previous trial on Monday, June 10th. In addition, the prosecution says it will submit a new 700 pages document with fresh evidence and videos of officers killing protesters. The trial is looking into the murder of 840 protesters and the injury of around 6,500 others during the January protests that forced Mubarak to step down in 2011. For the first time in Mubarak's trial, the court decided to dismiss this civil rights case and only concentrate on the criminal file. A step that has made victims' families furious, and now they believe that the rights of their martyrs will never be achieved. Adel Mahroui, CCTV, Cairo.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has held a joint press conference with his US counterpart Barack Obama after their first meeting. The two heads of state exchanged views on major international and regional issues of common concern and on building a new type of relationship between major powers. Bijian Lao tells us more.
Cybersecurity topped the agenda of their meeting. The US has complained about hacking from China. In a press conference, President Xi Jinping said China is firm in upholding cybersecurity.
We're highly concerned about cybersecurity. We're studying the issue and trying to resolve the issue effectively. This is also an area China and the U.S. can carry out pragmatic cooperation on. Through cooperation, we can eliminate suspicion. Our cooperation on cybersecurity can become a highlight in the future. Because this is our common concern, China is also a victim of cyber attacks.
Building a new type of relationship between major powers is also a priority of their talks. Xi Jinping said against the backdrop of globalization and jointly weathering difficulties, China and the US should take a path different from the previous one of confrontation.
I think both sides should work hard to build a new type of relationship between big powers. The two sides should cooperate with each other for a win-win result in order to benefit people from the two countries and the world.
His words were echoed by President Obama.
But what I'm very encouraged about is that both President Xi and myself recognize that we have a unique opportunity to take the U.S.-China relationship to a new level. And I am absolutely committed to making sure that we don't miss that opportunity.
The two leaders have also vowed to step up economic, trade and military-to-military cooperation. They have also exchanged the views on major international and regional issues, such as denuclearization and combating climate change. Bijian Lu, CCTV.
Now let's move to Zimbabwe, where a political tug-of-war continues over the date for the country's general elections. President Robert Mugabe's ZANU-PF party has dismissed calls by the opposition's Movement for Democratic Change and regional body SADC to delay the July 31st polls. This is to allow the implementation of further reforms to ensure a free and fair vote. SADC countries are due to discuss funding for the cash-strapped nation and other issues surrounding the upcoming election, and that's at a summit later this month. CCTV's Farai Mokatuya has more details.
The court ruling has sprung political players here into action. Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai's MDC and 4 other parties have said they want reforms, particularly in the security and media sectors, to happen before those elections can take place. They've also questioned whether voter registration and voter verification exercises, both requiring 30 days each, can happen ahead of July 31st. They have said they'll take their case to the regional body SADC. Meanwhile, President Robert Mugabe's ZANU-PF is adamant that the elections will go ahead within the time frame prescribed by the Constitutional Court. President Robert Mugabe was away when that ruling was made and only came back to the country from Japan on Friday. It is believed that the postponement of a summit that was due in Maputo on Sunday was at his request to allow him time to go through the court ruling. That summit was due to discuss funding for Zimbabwe's election, amongst other issues, and also to allow President Jacob Zuma of South Africa, who is the point person in mediating on Zimbabwe, to present his latest report. The MDC and other parties are disappointed at this postponement, which they hoped would resolve the election date issue, while President Robert Mugabe's party says as a mediator and as a facilitator, SADC should allow President Robert Mugabe to respect the rule of law and declare an election date according to the Constitutional Court's ruling. When that SADC summit does happen, it is likely to set the stage for heated debate on the issue. Farai Mwakutuya, CCTV, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Kenya has unveiled its very own Rapid Deployment Capability, or KRDC, capable of intervening and stabilizing humanitarian situations across Africa in the shortest time possible. This is to allow other peace support operations to get underway. It's part of efforts by the African Union to promote peace and security across the continent. The KRDC, which falls under the Eastern African Standby Force, is mandated to intervene within 14 days in cases of genocide. It's also tasked with offering urgent assistance to peacekeeping forces, as well as providing early intervention in the case of imminent conflict. The commander of the 1,787-strong force explains the ethos behind the KRDC.
From the lessons learned in 1994 in Rwanda, where the international community failed to intervene in Rwanda, and the African heads of states realized they would rather have African solutions for African problems. That is the genesis where African Standby Force was created. To better have a force that is uniquely able to intervene, rapid deployment capabilities have been developed in the 5 regions.
China-Africa economic relations continue to grow. Recently, the Chinese Hisense company in South Africa launched a new factory aimed at providing local consumers with high-end products at affordable prices. Hisense company is South Africa's major electronic appliances production base.
Located in Cape Town, Chinese Hisense company is South Africa's major electronics and electrical appliances production base. The company that began 16 years ago with a small office has grown in leaps and bounds to now develop its Chinese brand worldwide. The products are sold in Africa and the Middle East.
As we open our new factory, our strategy is very clear: to provide local consumers with high-end products. We want to change the concept that Chinese-made products is cheap. With the new established factory, we believe that Hisense will become a first-line brand in South Africa.
The company has 4 production bases dealing with televisions, refrigerators and other products in Africa. The first phase of this project has created more than 600 jobs for the locals and is promising to offer 2,000 more. South Africa's Minister for Economic Development, Ibrahim Patel, recognizes the impact the project has made in South Africa.
Chinese companies come to South Africa. It helps in a number of ways. It strengthens the local economy, it contributes to our growth rate, it increases the level of investment, and above all, it creates jobs for South Africans.
To strengthen its ties with Africa's economic powerhouse, China has also invested in South Africa in a number of ways.
Africa Fund invests approximately $2.5 billion in Africa. There are more than 10 projects, including the Hisense project. We mainly want to help African countries develop their economies and also strengthen Chinese-African relations. We also want to see more Chinese enterprises investing in Africa.
While power shortage remains a major impediment to development in Africa, the Chinese energy-saving high-tech products introduced in South Africa are proving to be crucial in bridging that gap. Jin Keo, CCTV.